Welcome, everyone, to another Domo community event alongside our good friends with the Advanced Customer Enablement team, the ACE team. I have Greg Auxier with me today. Greg, not as familiar face as Dan to my right, but excited to have him as well. Dan will be joining at some point, I think, in the back end, helping answering some chat questions. Had a meeting to go to. We actually had a little bit of a late start this morning, so apologize for keeping you about 4 minutes late on the live stream. But we appreciate everybody being here. We had a few technical issues we had to work out. Everything worked out fine, and we're finally live to you. So thank you guys so much for joining. Obviously, across the globe, put some of those hellos and highs. People from San Francisco and Calgary and Chicago and Long Island, New York, Toronto, Oregon. You guys are great. Thank you for being here. We couldn't obviously do these unless we continue to get the participation from our community audience, and we're excited that you're here. I'm Eddie Small, Director of Community here at Domo, and today we'll be chatting about master invoice processing with AI, basically taking some images and processing them with the AI agent and transforming how we're kind of showing those unstructured files. And really excited to see this. I know this is a really big one for a lot of folks out there that are maybe using some unconventional data tracking methods, right, Greg?
That's right.
Try to make sure that some of the workflows they're building and some of the data that they're using is can be actionable and part of our agent. So this is episode 3. We're in episode 3 of our automated data validation and smart routing, the official title of this session. But we planned 8 of these out so far, so we're almost halfway there. But these are walkthroughs, step by steps, and Greg's got a great plan for us today. But excited to have you, Greg. How is it there? It looks like you're in Dan's familiar background here. Looks like the weather's beautiful out in Utah. How are you?
That's right. Yeah, the ACE team has the best backdrop that we have the entire Domo office. So I'm really excited to be here. Excited to be on and walk down through this use case today. And I'm going to try and bring the energy. I'm not Dan. He brings the level. I'm going to try and be like one little tiny step below Dan, but we're going to make it happen.
Well, that's okay. We're excited to have you. Obviously, everyone on the ACE team is super knowledgeable, and I think a lot of our customers really respect the knowledge you guys bring and the expertise you bring, regardless of how excited you are about it. But yeah, I'd love to let's kick it up a notch here. I love that. Really excited to continue with you in these sessions. So thanks for being here. Thanks for jumping in, and let's let you dive in. Let's see where we're at.
Let's do it. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and let you share my screen, Eddie, for me, so everybody can be able to follow along with me. A couple of precursors when we get started today. So I'd like everybody to be open up to their own Domo instances around the world. Really excited for you guys to be joining me in building what I'm doing today. There's going to be a couple of steps to get started. The first thing that I want everybody to do is I'm going to share out a link in the post right now that you all just got access to. This is a Google Drive doc really fast, and I'm just going to show this to you really fast. So I have a couple of images, unstructured data, that basically show you 2 versions of the same invoice. One of them has been signed, and I'll explain to you why it had been signed and why not through the use case today. But I just want to make sure that everybody goes into here to this guy when you click that link and hit download onto your local machine. You're going to want to have these as we go through today as examples to feed through the AI agent to actually prove out its value. So click download, save them onto your local machine into a location, into a place where you can be able to have them, and you should be good to go on that. Okay, cool. First things first that I want to do with everybody is I want to show you what we're doing today and show you the use case here. Unstructured data, specifically images, have so many applicable use cases with AI that it is amazing to see. I have built an AI agent application for my images, and at Moto Retail, at our company that we use for demos here at Domo, I wanted to be able to show you guys a couple of things. So one of the processes as a department head that we have at our company is we have the ability to basically say, every time that one of my vendors that my particular team uses sends us over an invoice, it is my job to take that guy, and I first have to sign it. I have to sign that physical document. So I have to print it off or use a doc signature application, and I have to sign that guy. And then what I need to do is I used to, prior to Domo and prior to these AI agents, I used to either go into a Google Sheet, and we had a myriad of a process that involved Google Sheets, spreadsheets, emails being sent back and forth, and the process was extremely tenuous and took a really long time just to be able to get it from soup to nuts. And so we want to be able to help you guys eliminate all the back and forth and make a process that, based on routing rules and based on conditional logic, can be very, very cool. So simply enough, what you're seeing here is in my App Studio application, I just want to just show you the guts or show you the ins and outs of this application really fast. So it's pretty darn simple. So
Hey, Greg.
inside, yeah.
Sorry, I don't love to interrupt, so apologies, because I know you're deep in it. Let's can we go back to the Google Drive link? Sorry, this is going to look weird because you're obviously in the screen too. Some folks said that they felt like the site couldn't be reached. Maybe there was a permissions issue. Can we just double
Let me check that really fast? Yep, absolutely. Let's get this.
Just a
share, copy link. I'm going to manage the sucker. I'm going to say that anyone with the link can view it.
Yep.
I'm actually okay with everybody just being an editor even. So I'm going to update this guy, and let's go back and let's give you guys an updated cred to give you guys some stuff.
And it looks like Vish was able to email Lilia directly, so maybe it might have just been on her end. And then once we get back into the presentation, full screen it so we can see the whole screen. Because it's on your desktop, it looks a little funky, but there we go. Now we're chatting. All right.
A lot better.
Appreciate it, Greg. Just some things logistically, Dan and I aren't as comfortable, or Greg and I aren't as comfortable as Dan and I. So there are just a few things we're working out, but appreciate everybody's patience. But yeah, awesome. Looks like it's working great.
No, thank you guys. I that was our biggest worry, honestly. Like, now that we actually have the documents in your guys' hand, I'm like, man, if we can get just past that initial hurdle, we're going to be okay the rest of the day. So awesome. Okay, so I'm inside of my App Studio application just to show you guys the ins and outs really fast. Workflows are an element that essentially can kick off or can trigger a workflow behind the scenes, which is going to be our AI agent today. And so that's what I have basically built up here. This is a workflow that is basically a form that triggers the entire thing. And then down here that we're going to show you later, we're going to talk about queues. Queues are human in the loop processes, right? So I basically have, in my use case, if an invoice goes above a certain threshold, it has to go to a particular team, and they have to approve it, or they have to verify the data and make sure that it's accurate and make sure that it's good. And so that's what a queue is. A queue is an opportunity for a human in the loop, or a team in the loop, a group in the loop inside of Domo, to take the next step, to take the next action. So that's what I've got here on my app. Pretty darn simple, pretty darn basic. I'm going to go ahead and click cancel really fast. What I need everybody to do now is we're going to actually go into our instance. And what I want everybody to do is start with me in more and in the task center. Reminder, if you don't see any of these features today, it could be because of one of two things. It could be because of a role or a permission that you need to have access to. So reach out to your Domo admin at your company, your organization. Or option number two is it might be part of your contract that you might not have this as part of your contract yet. Don't be afraid of that. Just submit it over to your account team at Domo and just say, hey, can I have access to these couple of features so I can try these things out for a little bit and prove out if I can get value out of them? Absolutely fine as well. We want to help. Okay, awesome. So this is my task center, and I want everybody to go up to manage queues, and I want you to build that human in the loop process together with me really fast. And so we're going to build a new queue. And I want this guy to be called invoice approval, okay? And we're all gonna hit a new queue right there. So there we go, it's at the top of my list. And I just wanna talk really briefly about what this is, right? So the reason for this being is, at processes that we have around our company, I wanna take as much advantage of AI as I can, but AI is not perfect, right? I just told some really specific things that I wanted the AI to go and find. I needed to go find multiple data points out of that image, but I need to verify it. And so I need to have a team to do that verification work. So in here in your ... to your right, you have manage permissions. And this is where you can give other people access to this, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just add Dan Hendrickson really fast to this guy and let him know that he can be read, write, he can create content, read content, update content. Pretty normal to see those as being the permissions of the people that need to be able to take advantage of being assigned something in the queues, being assigned a task, and I'm going to hit save, right? That could have been a group. It could have been several people inside of my organization, but that's what we're going to do first off. So everybody should now have a queue. Awesome, cool. The next thing that we're going to do, like I said, so make sure that you've already downloaded the images. So if you're joining a little bit late, make sure that you hit that link that we shared out in the entire thing and make sure that you guys all have that inside of here, right? So I want you to all go in here and click download. and download a copy locally onto your own machine. Okay? Awesome. The next two things that we're going to do is I need everybody to follow me. We're going to go into the data center. So we're going to go to the stack of pancakes. If you guys ever know me and if you're ever on a call with me with the ACE team, I'm always going to refer to it as the stack of pancakes. I don't care what the product team at Domo says. It's the stack of pancakes. Cool. We're going to go to connect data and we're going to go to connectors. And what I want everybody to look for is just look for the word sample. We used this last week in the webinar session or a couple of weeks ago in their last webinar session with Riley. But it's a great place for us to just get some metadata and get an understanding, right? So the only reason why we're doing this today is to give you some data to do some validation. Basically, normally in a use case like this, I would be using data out of my ERP or out of my CRM to say, hey, I'm looking at this document and I need to validate data from the document to my ERP or to my CRM, right? You say the word contract, and the people that have to do contract reviews post a signature happening, that's a massive amount of effort. It's a massive amount of time. It'd be so much easier for me to use an AI agent to just say, hey, I looked at down at the image and I assigned it to the right team based on certain thresholds or whatever, and got that done. Okay, sample data. We're all going to scroll down in this data source, and we're going to scroll down to Moto Retail. We used the same thing last week. Okay. It's probably going to take a little bit of time because we're all pinging the same API and the same data set at the same time, but that's okay. Hit invoices. So invoices is the report that we're going to use for this particular session today. And we're going to hit next. And then what I want you all to do is I want you to just name this guy what that report was called. So we're just going to call it invoices. Okay. Hit save and run. Awesome. This is the first thing that's going to do. It's going to be a really small data set, but it's essentially mimicking data or metadata that I have about my invoices at my company, right? I would actually rather see you all tie this to live data about contracts or prepared documents that you guys have data about those documents inside of your Domo instance already, but pretty simple data inside of there. The next thing that we want to do is go back to the data center. So we've got our images now. We now have data that is coming in essentially that I would have tied to my ERP, to my CRM for validation purposes. Now what I want to do is I want to have a last data set that is going to be, so I'm going to click on connectors again and click that back button. We're going to look for web form as our connector, which essentially is a Domo storage container, storage table inside of the cloud, inside of Domo. And what I want you to call this is I want to call this, we're actually going to name this guy right up here. We're going to call this invoice approval. So what I have to have here is I'm probably going to use this data set and join it back onto my ERP data set and back onto my CRM data set to be able to understand and say, did we approve it? What details did you have? And other things like that. So there's data that I'm going to capture within the workflow itself that doesn't exist inside of my live data sets today, right? This is human in the loop data being added to that process to make it even more enriched, okay? Everybody, if you want to follow me along, what we're going to do is we're going to just build a couple of columns in here really fast, because what I want this to store is I want it to store data and have it be something that is uniquely identifiable back to my data that I have inside of my systems. So we're going to do an invoice ID, an address, a due date. I'd also like to do an invoice amount. And I'm going to do payment approved. And the reason why I'm naming this way is because I'm just naming it the same way that the columns were named inside of my data set when they came in through my ERP. So I'm just literally naming it the same way that they were named there. It really wouldn't matter. You could have named these columns whatever that you wanted to. Okay, and we're going to call that good. So we basically have A through F filled out. And you'll notice on here, because we don't have any data in here, it assumes that everything is a string. And I don't really want a date to be a string because I'm going to have to mess with that in the data perspective. So whenever I build a web form, best practice definitely is to just come in and give it some data to follow it via the type of data that you want it to be. So an invoice ID, I would like it to be a string. So I'm just going to put in the word ABC for right now on this first line of data. Address, same thing. I'm going to put ABC. Due date, I want to be a date. I don't want it to be something else. And so I'm going to put in 1-1-2026. You can put in whatever that you want to. Invoice amounts typically are going to be dollars and cents, or euros and cents. So I'm going to basically just go in and put an even $100 with 0 cents on there. I am going to put a payment approved as yes, and I'm going to put details as good to go. Awesome. So this is basically going to be a table that will store values that as we get approvals done, I have now a table that will store all of my net new invoices when they go through the approval process, and will give out the data that I need to, so I can join it back into, or even potentially push it back into my ERP and populate new fields in my ERP or in my CRM saying, were there any additional details about that particular invoice before we send it out? Was there any, did the payment get approved, yes or no, kind of a thing. Let's go ahead and hit save and continue, and we're gonna go ahead and hit save. Awesome, so at this point, just recapping really fast, we should now have 2 new data sets that are getting created, and this will take a little bit of time. We all know this, when we all hit the web forms at the exact same time, it's gonna take a second for this to happen, okay? And so that's okay. We're going to let this thing roll for just a second. And so we've got a couple things done really fast. So just to recap, we all built a queue, which is going to be our human in the loop process that we're going to be leveraging. We're also going to use that specifically with a threshold that we're about to build in our workflow. And then what we're also going to do is we're also going to have 2 new data sets. We're going to have an invoices data set, which really in real life scenario would have been coming from my ERP or from my CRM or some type of a database where I had that information storing. And then I'm also going to have this approval web form that I now have created. So you should all have the exact same structure as I've got. Really, really cool. Awesome. The next thing that I want everybody to do now is let's start building that agent. Let's start having some fun building out an AI agent. So if you go to workflows, more, and bottom right, we're going to go to workflows. Once again, we've had this come up on a couple of times on this work series. If you don't, in this webinar series, if you do not have workflows, just reach out to your account team. So just follow along for today. This will be recorded. You can come back to this later and follow the step-by-step later once you have it flipped on, okay? New workflow, and we're all gonna start from a blank canvas. And so what I want everybody to just call this guy is, for me, I'm just gonna call it my Invoice AI agent. You guys can call it whatever that you guys want to. Awesome. So this is where I'm going to start from. I'm going to start right here from this very, very first block that just got created. Okay. Every workflow has to be triggered by some type of element. And you'll remember back to my particular app when we built that, mine triggered by a form, right? So I had a form that basically was created. And so we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to recreate this guy. So if you click over on your right side and you click on customize start form, what I want to just call this is I just want to call this invoice processing. Is going to just be my name of my form itself. This is what's going to show up at the top of my dashboard, the top of my App Studio application. And then I'm going to have add question. And all I want to do here is I just want to call this guy drop image here. Okay, so I basically just gave it instructions just like I did in my app right here. And I just called it and said, hey, drop my image here that I need for invoice processing. Cool. It's not going to be a short answer, right? We want to give it an image. So I need to change this to an attachment type of data. Everybody gets a little bit confused because they're like, why is the number here? But Domo basically will save a unique identifier number for every image that you guys can be able to have and use as a parameter going forward in the future. And then let's just talk briefly about the options over here on the right, because these are really, really important. We're going to use these more, especially when it comes to our queue that we're going to build out later here. Default value would be none, right? I haven't given you an image yet, so I don't have a default value. Now, there might be use cases where you want to say, hey, I'm making the assumption that it's this value first. Most of the time, you're not going to do that. Most of the time, you're going to leave it as none, right? Especially with this type of an image, right? So start parameter, we do want to change this to variable defined, and we want to create a variable and map it, right? You're going to see right here, it named my variable the exact same name that you're seeing up here that I called my field. We're going to leave the column name blank, but if you want to, you can just preview this really fast and you'll see that it will preview it out and will preview out the image that you're seeing the way that I'm seeing it. So I'm going to go ahead and just click save, okay? One of the things that I'm not a huge fan of is I'm not a huge fan of really lengthy variable names. I'd rather just keep them really concise and simple. And I don't need this thing to be called drop image here. And so over here on my left, I just want to make sure that you're aware that in the variable list, you can click on the pencil right there and you can update your names to whatever that you want to call them. For me, I'm just going to call mine image. I don't need it to be drop image here. I just want it to be simple and just be called just image. That's good enough for me. Cool. Next thing that I want to do is I want to click the plus icon. The plus icon basically is like, if you're very familiar with Magic ETL, it's like the next tile. It's the next thing that you want to build inside of your workflow. Okay. I now am going to click on AI agent task. And this is going to be our actual invoicing agent. So this is going to be my agent to go and look at that document and go and get some specific things that I want for it. Okay. Let's go into the configuration. So on the right where you saw that button where it said configure AI agent. And where I want to start from here is I want to start from the input. I like to start from the input because for me, it's the first thing that actually makes a lot of sense of I need to give this thing a dynamic parameter of what I'm expecting it to do. So in my prompt is my instructions that I'm going to give the AI agent and say, this is what I need you to go do for me. I am going to refer to my image as the word file. So that's just me. I'm calling it that. I'm calling it and saying, when I say the word file, I am just letting you know that file is actually that image. And so I'm going to go and click on file. I'm going to hit a colon. I'm going to put a space, and then I'm going to put the word image and insert. So yours should look identical to this on your input section of your agent. I'm going to hit OK. If I had a text summarization or I had a transcript or I had some big, massive amount of text that I was trying to analyze through a file, that would probably be my use case. That would be my variable, right? So that would be my dynamic element that I'm passing each time differently. So each time that I use this, it's going to be a new image. So that's what I'm saying here is this is a new image every time that I use this. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start working together on populating out this particular prompt or instruction set that I'm going to give. And then little by little, we're going to build out the tooling necessary to build this out. And so if you want to follow along with me, we learned from last week that we tried to copy and paste a bunch of text into the StreamYard chat, and it kind of broke it up into sections or whatever. So I'm just going to type it away with you guys because it's not going to be too long of a prompt. It's actually going to be pretty simple. So I'm going to say in here, I want you to take the image. Actually, I'm going to say the file in the image. So referencing again, I'm using the word file. So when I say file, it now knows in my input, and I'm saying, oh yeah, the file. I want you to take the file in the image and pass it to Domo's image to text service. Cool. So let's go do this first, right? I want to just break this down step by step how I think about building out agents. I'm basically saying, okay, first things first, I want you to take the file in the image. I want you to pass it to this thing called Domo's image to text service. That would be referred to as a tool. So if you go to your tools tab up at the top in the agent, over here on the right, you're going to see add tools. And we've been doing this the last couple of weeks, but we're going to go right here to the AI service layer tools, which is where all of our AI tools are. Domo continues to build and iterate off these guys as well. So this is amazing because you're going to just constantly see cool new services and tools being brought to the forefront from Domo. And we are referencing this image to text guy right here. So I'm going to hit add function. Okay. Awesome. So step one is done. I've got my first tool. Okay. The next thing that I want to add in here is I want to say, I want you to have the image to text service extract the following details. So I'm basically telling it, look at this image, and I'm looking specifically for these values or these fields and these values within that image. Okay, so I'm going to now start to tell them what I'm looking for. So I am looking for one. Obviously, I probably want to know an amount field. So I'm going to look for an amount. I want to know the invoice ID. I want to know address. Notice how this is starting to sound really familiar to that web form that we set up earlier, right? I'm basically saying, oh, yeah, this is why we built that web form, was because we were giving it a place to land new values with some of this data. I have my due date, and tell me true or false if there is a signature on the signature line in the and place that true or false answer into the signature included field. Awesome. So we're just using up that image to text service up to this point, right? I'm looking and it's scanning the image and it's looking for all this data. So right now I'm still at just one tool, right? This is where we're going to start to get to more tools. Now what I want to say is I want you to query the invoices table or data set to see if a record exists where the invoice ID matches the invoice ID from the image itself. If the response is null, then I want vendor exists, which is going to be another field that I'm going to go and create here, to be false. And if it returns a match, make it true. Sweet. Okay, so this is now our next tool we need to now go give our agent to. So we're going to go and do that right now. So I basically said, I'm now going to go and reference, and I need you to reference back data that lives in Domo already and check to see, hey, is that invoice ID already in our ERP? Or is it already in our CRM? I need to know. I need to know if we already have a record for it, yes or no. Cool. So I'm going to go here to add tools like I was doing previously. And I want you all to look for a tool called Query. So it's not going to be BigQuery specifically this time. It's not going to be Snowflake. It's just going to be Domo data sets. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to look for the tool called Query with SQL. Okay. Now I want to be specific as well here. So a lot of these tools will automatically, by the instructions given, they'll go and they'll run without things. Now I have a lot of data sets inside of my Domo instance, a lot, right? And I don't want it to have to go out and scan all of these data sets everywhere. I want to be pretty literal and just say, hey, it's not all these data sets, it's this one. So right here in this query with SQL, if you click on the query with SQL, this menu will open up on your right. And all I want you to do with me is I want you to change the data set to custom. So we're going to see custom value here. And then if you click over here on your left, you're going to see custom again. And you're going to click on choose data set, and I want you to go look for invoices. So we're all going to be looking at the exact same file as each other. Hit OK, hit save agent. Okay, so as of right now, and I want you to go back in really fast, so we're going to click back on the ... in the edit. But now I have given it access to two tools in my agent, and you're going to see those both in here right now. So I've got image to text, and I've got query with SQL. Both have their purpose. Both I need both of them to do the functions I'm asking to do. Now the last one that is going to be this. So lastly, I want you to use the get executor function to return the person who initiated the workflow. So I want to know, as well as one of my additional fields or one of my additional variables, I want to know who actually hit the submit button on my app, right? So when I was back here on my app really fast, who did this? Who came in here out of all the different people that have access to this application? Who did it? Because I need to know that, because I'm going to actually communicate back out to that person on that. So last tool We're going to go over to add tools, and I want you to all look for executor. And if you click in here, you'll click on Domo workflow executions, and at the bottom of the list, you're going to see the get executor function. Awesome. So now I've got those 3 functions. I'm going to come back over here to my configuration, and there's one final step we got to do to get this thing to work right. So what I need everybody to do is right here, an object is built, but it's sitting kind of empty or sitting blank without the things that I actually told it that I wanted it to do. This is where I'm telling the workflow and saying, hey, remember all those fields that we told it that we wanted it to go and find from the image itself? You got to give me a way to temporarily store those guys, potentially even write them out to a data set in Domo or write them back out to a data set out to your ERP, your CRM, whatever your use case is. So that's what we're going to do now. So what I want you to do is I want you to just follow along. We're going to do address. So child name and address is text. And we're going to just add these really quickly. So we're going to do address. We're going to do amount. Amount was a decimal because it has, obviously there's decimals inside of it, right? They have dollars and cents. I want to do due date. Due date is going to be just a date column. I want to do executor, right? The person that actually fired the thing off, that did the whole process, and that's going to be a person data type. Person really means it's looking at the unique identifier, the user ID of the user inside of Domo, which is really cool. So I can be able to say, hey, I don't even need to know your name or anything. I can literally take actions based on just the fact that I know who did that action, right? Cool. I need to do invoice ID. Just going to be text. I need to do my new fields, right, that are going to go and use that AI that are not even existing in my data. I actually am going to have the AI build these for me. Signature included is going to be Boolean. And then the last one, what we're going to do is we're going to do, did the vendor exist? So vendor exists, right? These were brand new things that I'm asking that agent to build. And it's also going to be a Boolean, a true or false answer for me. Okay, so I'm going to hit save on this guy. I'm looking at it. It looks good. I've got all my different data types in here, and I can always go back in here and switch these things up. I can click on the pencil and I can update them, change the values. But for right now, we're looking good. So I'm going to hit save agent and continue. Okay. The last thing that we're going to do down here is it's going to ask us to create a variable, and it's going to, on our right in the outputs, it's going to ask me to create a variable. And notice how it named it result.address, result.amount, result.due date. This is to keep it really, really well organized, right? I actually don't like the default of results, and it actually kind of confuses me. And so I'm just going to call this invoice. I would rather it be called invoice vendor exists, invoice stuff or whatever. So I'm actually just going to call mine invoice. Easier for me to keep straight in my head of like, wait, what was that thing doing again? It was my invoice agent, so I want to call it invoice. Awesome. So up till now, I want to have everybody click save so we don't lose this. We don't lose our progress in case your internet goes out or whatever, right? We always want to be checking in and always want to be constantly just clicking the save button as we're going, as we're building out our version inside of workflows. Really, really cool. Okay, next thing that we're going to have everybody do is we're going to click on the plus icon again down here. And now what we want to do is we want to start giving this thing some smart routing. So based on the things that I'm seeing in the image, I want you to now take particular actions. And so I'm going to call this guy my router. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but I'm going to call mine my router. Off on the right side where it has this plus icon on the right, I'm going to click the plus icon. I could have done it on the bottom when it didn't really matter. But what I want to do is I want to use an email tool. And what I want to do is I want to say, hey, I want to send an email to a person. And really what I want to do is every time that we build conditional logic, we need to have, one of our routes has to be the default, right? We don't want results to get trapped in a non-answered way, right? So I'm going to change this from add condition from basic in that add condition guy right here that just showed up in the middle. And I'm going to change this to my default. And I'm going to call my default not signed. So my default is going to be, hey, if you don't fit in one of these other buckets, then just go down the default one, right? And so what we're going to do in here in this section is, in the send email to person, is I'm going to use my body. I'm going to hit custom, and this is my body of my email, right? So I'm actually going to get pretty funny here. And so I'm going to say, hi there. You submitted invoice And then this is where I can get dynamic in this thing. And I can say, yeah, it was invoice.invoice ID. So I can say you submitted invoice whatever without a signature. Please resubmit once a signature is made on the updated file. Awesome. Yours truly, BFF AI. Cool. I like that. Person over here on the right is going to be why we called that executor service. So remember when I called out one of the tools in the AI and I said, hey, I want you to go get the get executor. This was why I called up the get executor in my agent, because I wanted to be able to say dynamically, send that email only to the person that actually submitted the entire thing. The rest of these are totally up to you guys. I'm going to build a subject line. I'm going to make it custom. I'm just going to call this thing sign the thing. Cool. The only last thing I need to do is I need to just make an output, and I'm just going to go down here to create a variable, and it's going to create an is set message just so I can be able to use that. Now I might want to make that as a trigger as my next step in the workflow to say, hey, was the is set marked as true? Yes or no, kind of a thing, right? And so the last thing that I want to do here, so I'm going to go ahead and hit save again really fast, and then I'm going to come over here to this guy, and I am going to, this is looking good. Yep. Sweet. Cool. So that's good for right now. We're going to take care of our end steps here in just a second. And the next thing that I want everybody to do is I want everybody to go over here to their router again. And now we're going to go build out the smarter version of the router that actually is going to assume some cool stuff has actually happened. And so what I want everybody to do is, out of the 4 sections at the top, we're going to use the user task. This is where we're now going to call back in that queue process, right? So the queue that was down here at the bottom of our workflow, I want everybody to be able to see that guy and see how this works. So we're going to hit general task. And the general task we're going to build in just a second. First things first, let's actually build out some logic, okay? So I have my actual workflow that I build actually has multiple routes. So it has routes of, if the invoice is below X, but higher than X, then it needs to go this way. If it's between this and this, it needs to go this way, whatever. So I have my router in my live example is really, really good and really deep. But for this one, we're just going to call this guy and say, the name is going to be called signed over 2K. So it's over $2,000 is how big the invoice is. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here to add rule, and it's going to say, cool, what's your rule going to be? And I'm going to say, cool, first rule first is going to be signature included. So it's going to be invoice.signature included is equal to true. Awesome. Rule 1 is done. I actually am going to have 3 rules here for this particular route that we're building out, just so you guys can be able to see how easy this is. I have and or logic here. I'm definitely going to keep it as and. I need all these conditions to have applied. I need vendor exists to also be marked as true. So this is that step where it went back and it looked at the data set and it said in the data in Domo and said, hey, did we already have a planned invoice for this thing inside of our system? And it's like, yep, we did. We absolutely did. I'm going to hit true, add rule. So now I have 2. I have signature included and I have vendor exists true. And the last one we need to do is that amount, right? So we're going to go down here to invoice.amount, and I'm going to say is greater than or equal to $2,000. $2,000. Cool. So I now have a very particular set of rules that if this happens, this is our next step. And our next step is going to be that queue that we built at the very beginning of the call today. Awesome. So if we go up here to select queue, you'll notice we all called it invoice approval. That was our step, or that's what we called our queue. It will ask us who we want to assign this thing to. For right now, I would just assign it to the executor because you're just kind of like playing around with it. But this could have been assigned to a group or to someone else, right? They need to have access with permissions to the queue itself. So you need to make sure of that. But this would be able to leverage that. For right now, I'm going to do executor because I'm the one that's messing around with it. I know I'm the one that's going to be submitting the invoice. And then select a form. And I'm going to come in here and we're going to create a new form and we're going to make this thing really, really cool. So we're going to call this guy invoice approval. Okay. So remember, this was like our data set, right? Like our invoice approval data set. So we're going to click create. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go and do a couple things that I want to be able to see in this guy. Number one, I actually want to see the dang image. I want to actually see the image. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Let's call this invoice. Invoice. And I want this to be an attachment. And the default value from this guy is not going to be user defined. I don't want the person to actually physically put a new image in. I want you to go and get the image that previously, which is called variable defined, and I want to use that. And so I'm going to hit variable defined. I'm going to say image. Right here in the dot, 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 it gives you a whole bunch of things that will say, hey, do you want this to accept an input? Do you want it to provide an output? Do you want it to be read-only? I actually want this to be read-only, and I want it to just accept inputs because I don't want somebody messing with the image itself. The image itself is what it is. If the person needs to start over again, they can go back in at the start of the thing and they can go and do that. However, if I did make this not read-only and I did allow outputs to happen, I could just give the freedom to the team that actually has to approve it to go in and resubmit a new image if I needed them to, which is pretty dang cool. So I can basically say, swapping in, swapping out your work, right? So some of our other ones are actually going to be that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to add another question. The last thing as well in here that I just want to make sure that you can do is it says, do you want to add an output? On this one, I'm going to leave it as none just so you're aware. The next one that we're going to do is I need to know the invoice ID because I just really quickly want to be able to look at the image above, and then I want to look down really fast and I want to say, what did the AI say that the invoice ID was? Because I want to double validate and say, are we sure that that's right? Does it look right on the image? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it as short answer, and I'm going to leave it as text because it is text, and I'm going to make the variable defined, and I'm going to say the variable defined is that invoice ID. Perfect. But this, however, I want to make it that if it's wrong or if the image looks ever so slightly wrong, I want to give the freedom to the person to be able to make updates. So I'm going to leave accept input and provide output. And that way I want to say, I want it to be variable defined and I want it to be the invoice ID, which essentially would write over the invoice ID that it used to be in the workflow and add the new one. The last couple of ones that we want to put in here is I want to put in the amount. I definitely want to check and see if the amount was jacked up, was messed up. And so I'm going to put amount. And by the way, you can mess with these. Like, it doesn't really matter if I make these really pretty and beautiful inside of my work form, just so they look more presentable. I can absolutely do that. That's fine. Amount was going to be a short answer, but it was a decimal. So it was not a different type of data. You'll notice that if you don't have the right data type in here, it won't show you the right type of data types in your previous steps, right? So I wanted to make sure that it was a decimal and it was invoice amount. And this one, same thing. I want to make sure that it's input and output. Okay. It's really important to me because, like, if AI is not perfect, I still want to have the step to be able to say, hey, I validated the amount and it caught the wrong amount on the thing. There was 500 amounts on there and it just caught the wrong one that I thought was the total amount. And so I updated it really fast. AI is really good, but it's not perfect, right? Same thing on here. I want a variable define the output and I want to send it to the amount field. The last two ones that we're going to just do in here really fast is I'm going to do my new fields. And so I'm going to do approved. So I'm going to say this guy is approved. And when it says short answer, I'm actually going to change it from short answer on this one. And I'm going to change it to single choice drop down because I just want to have my own options. And so right here where it says add options, I'm going to say yes is an option and no is an option. Okay. And on this one, when it says, do you want to accept inputs? I'm going to say, no, it's not going to accept inputs because I don't have an input yet. That's my job. I'm actually the person that's coming in and saying whether or not I'm approving it at this point. So I'm only going to provide outputs. And so when it says over here, is it user defined? Yeah, it's going to be user defined. It's going to be the end person that's going to be doing that. The default value is going to be none. I'm okay with that. And the output is going to be variable defined, and I need to create a new variable. So I need to create an approved variable. So cool. Awesome. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to go down here and we're going to do one last question really fast, and we're going to do details. And a little bit of a gotcha. The reason why I'm including details in here is because I don't want you to make the mistake that I've made myself. Short answer, normally from like a text limitation perspective, it doesn't allow you to write as much text as you might want to write. And so I will change it to paragraph. Paragraph just makes it so it's easier and I can write more value into it. Provides outputs perfect. It's not going to be read-only, right? Otherwise, if it was read-only, it means I can't even do anything with it. Default value is none. Output is going to be a new variable defined, and I'm going to create a new variable, which is going to be my details variable. So cool. Awesome. We've got about another 5 minutes left, and we're going to be wrapping up here. Okay. So if you want to just go right here really fast and you want to hit your preview, you'll see it really fast. Mine is obviously has fun, so I can click on my save really fast. And you'll notice that your parameters are ready to go. I have my ones that required an input, which basically means I fed this in from a previous step in the workflow. And then I have my outputs, the one that I'm basically saying now send that one down as the new value that it's going to be stored temporarily for that process. Okay. And I'm going to call this guy invoice approval. Sweet. Okay, 2 last steps and we're going to be done here. Okay, so I just hit my save button one more time to just make sure. If I click right here on the next plus icon, the next thing that we want to do is we want to use a feature that's called, or a function that's called append to data set. This is why we built that initial data set, because I wanted to be able to have a place to store my details and my yes or no from a proof perspective, right? So it's going to ask me really fast and say, cool, what data set do you want me to append new data rows to? I'm going to click custom, choose data set, and I'm going to hit my invoice approval. Perfect. Delimiters are really, really important. You don't want to find things that are seen in your data, right? So if I would have put like comma delimiter, terrible example, right? Addresses have commas in them all the time. Periods have like stuff like that inside of data like that. So I'm going to do a double pipe. I'm going to do a pipe.
Hey, Greg.
Yeah.
Sorry. Again, hate to interrupt. I want to bring on a special guest. He wanted to jump. Oh, he says not yet. Okay. Well, we'll not bring any special guests on. Continue.
Okay. We're almost done. So then we can bring on our special guest. Okay. Last thing that it wants is it says there's a value section down here. So we select our delimiter, and our values are going to be pretty simple. So we're going to do exactly what we had in our data set. So actually, I'm going to back this out really fast, and I'm going to start from my parameters. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to start from my variables. I'm going to say invoice ID, pipe. And then I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to say invoice.address, pipe. So remember, this is what we were asking for in that data set, right? So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to say invoice.duedate, pipe. And then I've got 2 left. I've got my amount. And now we got the 2 left. So now we have approved, which is going to be at the top. And I'm going to do ... and then I'm going to do my last one, details. Sweet. Okay, so what this basically does is it basically tells the format of how to send that data down to that data set when it actually wants to do it. Okay, the rest of those things aren't required, so we're good to go. And the last thing that I'm going to do on both of these is I'm going to add end steps to allow the workflow to actually run. So I'm just going to call these really quick, and I'm just going to say that's an end. And then this guy, same thing. I want to just do the exact same thing, and I want to call this guy an end. And I'm going to refresh mine really fast because it's being a joy and having fun with me and not giving me the little step right there. Bam. Coming back in. Let's go back into this guy. Open this guy up. And I'm going to say that I want to do an end. So you just want to have ends off of each of your steps, right? So mine obviously isn't showing that really fast, but this is it. So now when you're done with this, you can now go ahead and deploy it and start to run this guy, okay? And essentially what it's going to do is it's going to give you now a canvas to go out and you're going to build yourself an App Studio app just like I did. You're going to drag in your workflow as your first step, which is your initial workflow, and then we'll go down through everything. And I would recommend that you put in your not signed and go look for that email. Go look for that email that will tell you and say, hey, it wasn't signed. And then as soon as it is signed, you'll notice that the particular images I gave you, they were above $2,000. So they will fit that particular type of look and feel of what you were seeing inside of there. Notice how this was a $3,500 invoice. So that's it. So I'll go ahead and shut it down for now and stop sharing. And I'd love to hear from our guest speaker here in the last couple of minutes that we've got you guys all on the call.
Hey, Greg, I was just going to say, I think I was just going to kind of help walk through the resolution where I thought you'd found with trying to add that end shape, but no big deal. It looks like you got the whole thing built out. So So great work, man.
Dan took over my job. Did anybody see that? Let me see what happened there. Those folks that are used to joining, I click the buttons, and Dan was getting awfully click happy there for me. So appreciate it. Thanks, Dan.
Sorry, Eddie.
No worries.
But no. Hey, can we take a second and tease the next one? Should we do that now?
Yeah, go for it. Let's talk about it.
Hey, Greg, great work. We've had a ton of engagement here. Love the interaction. I'm really excited. I'll be back. We heard from Greg and Riley most recently. I'm going to be back with episode 4, and we're going to do a really cool one where we do some sentiment analysis and we handle taking action on customer reviews, right? So obviously a lot of our customers, their most valuable assets are their customers. And so we'll show you a really cool solution that they can go in and take action. We're going to surface poor reviews to the appropriate people. We're going to, make offers available to folks based on content of their review. We're going to do some really cool things with it. So excited about it. I'm sure Eddie will get a link out for it soon, but yeah, it'll be a good one.
Yeah, we're excited. Unconventionally here on this session, we don't have a QR code, no links to share with you at this point, but if you're a member of the community, you'll get notified as soon as we post it, which will be shortly in the next day or so. So just kind of tweaking a few things a little bit on our back end with the webinar stuff, but want to make sure we have that all set up before we officially put it out there, and that'll be in a day or two. But if you're a community member, community-forums.domo.com, you can get access as soon as I hit publish. You'll get a notification that it is live and ready to be a part of. So thank you guys so much. I love this from John. He's excited. Had a recent client ask about using AI to count stars on reviews, so hoping sentiment analysis can help.
Maybe I can sneak that in there for you, John. I think we're gonna do that one on the 13th is the date. I think that's one of the things we're waiting to nail down, but hopefully we can sneak that in there for you. So yeah.
And again, Dan, thanks to Greg. Obviously great session, lots of AI use cases using the AI agent, and your team obviously being a part of these for the past several weeks. These are really, really fun. But John also wants to know when the next time you'll be playing guitar live on these streams, Dan.
I've learned there's a time and a place, and I don't know that the Domo community live stream is the place, but John, my invitation to have you over to the house to jam at any time is still an open one. So next time you're in Salt Lake, let's do it.
And Bryant may be right. The team did learn a lot since I wasn't here on our last stream. Enough to go ahead and know how to bring people on and take people off, which is incredible. I don't know. Maybe out of a job soon. I'm not worried about AI. I'm worried about Dan AI over there.
We can't do it without Eddie. Sorry for the intrusion.
No, it was awesome. All right, guys. Hey, I appreciate you. Obviously, everyone here has so much fun. It's a good time to just jump in and be in the product and learn how to demo some of these cool AI features. Next one's coming up. So be a member in our community. Be checking all of the things, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, all of the spaces, and we'll be promoting those very, very shortly. So thank you, Dan, and thank you, Greg, again for doing these.